They skipped my wedding because I married poor. They skipped my husband's funeral because it was inconvenient. They didn't skip the press release when I sold my company. I had one chair saved for family that day. I left it empty. A story about the family that didn't come and the woman who stopped waiting. My name is Claire Morrison and I want to tell you about a chair. It was a folding chair, white, nothing special, set up in the third row of a press event in Nashville, Tennessee on a Tuesday morning in October. I put it there myself the night before when the venue was empty and the only sound was the HVAC hum and my own footsteps on the hardwood. I taped a small card to the seat with one word written on it in black marker. Family. Then I walked away and left it empty. But before I tell you what happened when the room filled up, I need to take you back to the beginning because the beginning is the whole reason the chair meant anything at all. I married Marcus Morrison on a Saturday in June, in a Davidson County courthouse, with 17 people present. My parents were not among them. My sister Diane was not among them. The Harmons of Buckhead, Atlanta. My family with their brick colonial and their country club membership and their very specific idea of what Claire's life was supposed to look like, had made their position clear 2 weeks before the wedding, when my mother Patricia sat me down at her kitchen table and told me that if I married a mechanic from Cookeville, Tennessee, I was on my own. You have a business degree, she said, as if a degree was a leash. You could have anyone. I could have Marcus, I told her. And I did. The wedding cost us $340, including the courthouse fee and a dinner afterward at a barbecue place on Broadway where Marcus's mother Dolores cried the good kind of tears and his uncle Ray gave a toast that lasted 11 minutes and referenced the Book of Ruth twice. I wore a cream dress I'd found at a consignment shop on 21st Avenue. Marcus wore his best shirt, pressed so flat you could read the collar like a page. My parents sent nothing. Not a card. Not a call. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself that for 3 years and mostly I believed it because Marcus made it easy to believe. He worked 60-hour weeks at the shop and I worked 40 at a regional accounting firm, and we bought a small house in East Nashville with a porch that needed paint and a yard that needed everything, and we were building something. Slow and real in hours. Then on a Wednesday in March, the shop foreman called my cell at 2:47 in the afternoon. Marcus was gone at 31. A hydraulic lift failure, the kind that happens once in 30 years at a well-run shop and happened once at this one. I was 27. Our daughter Lily was 18 months old and had just started saying, "Dada," with perfect, devastating clarity. I called my mother from the hospital parking lot. I don't know what I expected. Something. Anything. She listened for maybe 45 seconds. Then she said, "Claire, we can't fly in for this. It's a lot to manage on short notice. You made your choices and this is part of that life. You made your choices." I sat in my car for a long time after that call, key in my hand, going nowhere. Then I drove to Dolores Morrison's house in East Nashville, because it was the only direction I had left. Dolores was 62 years old, recently retired from 27 years as a school cafeteria manager, and she lived in a house the size of a generous thought, with wind chimes on the porch and a kitchen that smelled like butter and cast iron. She opened the door before I knocked, as if she'd been watching for my headlights, and she didn't say anything for a long time. She just held me in the doorway while Lily slept in her car seat on the porch, and the wind chimes moved and I finally stopped holding everything together by force. That night, after Lily was down, Dolores made biscuits. Not as a gesture, not as therapy, just because that was what she did when the world cracked open. She worked the dough with her hands and talked about Marcus as a boy. And somewhere between the folding and the cutting she took a single index card from the junk drawer and set it on the counter beside me. It was a recipe. Her mother's biscuit recipe, written in pencil so old the graphite had softened to gray, with a thumbprint in the corner from some long ago flour-covered hand. "That's yours now," she said. "Don't lose it." I put it in my jacket pocket. I still have that jacket. I still have the card. Here is what nobody knew about me during those years when my family had written me off as a bad investment. I was good with numbers the way some people are good with music. Not just competent, perceptive. I could look at a small business's books and see not what it was, but what it could be, the gap between current structure and actual potential. I'd been doing it for other companies at my accounting job for 4 years, making them money off my analysis drawing. My $47,000 salary and quietly keeping my mouth shut. Marcus dying made me stop keeping my mouth shut. Grief will do that. It burns away the patience for waiting. I used $8,000 of the life insurance. The modest policy Marcus had, the one that barely covered the funeral, to rent a commercial kitchen space 3 mornings a week. I made Dolores's biscuits, scaled up, packaged properly, and started selling wholesale to 3 coffee shops in the Germantown neighborhood. I built the financials myself, structured the pricing to the cent, and within 14 months I had a waiting list. I named the company Dolores. I did not ask permission. She cried when she found out, the same way she'd cried at my $340 wedding. By the time Lily started first grade, I had 4 production kitchens, a regional distribution deal, and a meeting with a private equity group in Charlotte who had read a profile of us in a food industry trade publication. By the time Lily was 9, Dolores Biscuits was in 41 states. And when Lily was 10 and I was 37, a large national food and hospitality group sat across from me at a conference table and offered to buy us. I asked for a week to think. I already knew the answer. I just wanted the week. The press release went out on a Monday morning and my phone rang before noon. It was my mother. Her voice had a warmth in it I hadn't heard since I was small enough to be useful. He said she was proud. She said she'd followed what I was building quietly from a distance and had always believed in me. She asked about Lily by name, which told me she'd recently looked it up, because in the 2 calls we'd had in the last 10 years, she had called her the little one both times. My father emailed. My sister Diane texted 3 times, the messages arriving in a cluster, like she'd been composing them for an hour and released them all at once. The last one said, "We should be there for this, Claire. Family should be together for something this big." I read that text standing at my kitchen counter, and I remembered a parking lot in March 11 years earlier and a 45-second phone call, and a woman telling me this was part of the life I'd chosen. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called my event coordinator and told her I needed 1 more chair added to the 3rd row, with a card taped to it. I told her what to write. She didn't ask why, which I respected. The press event was a Tuesday morning, and the room held about 90 people. Journalists, industry contacts, the company's leadership team, Dolores in the front row in a blue dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion, Lily beside her in her school clothes because she'd refused to miss it. My attorney Sandra sat to my right. The buyer's representatives were already in place. Everything was documented, executed, final. There was nothing left to negotiate. I was at the podium reviewing my notes when I saw them come in. My mother in a blazer the color of champagne. My father, hands in his pockets, scanning the room with the look of a man attending something he deserves to attend. Diane walking slightly behind them checking her phone. They found seats. My mother spotted me at the podium and lifted her chin in a small, confident nod. The nod of a woman who believes her seat is being saved. I watched her eyes travel to the 3rd row. To the white folding chair. To the index card taped to the seat. She read it. She looked up at me. Something shifted in her expression, a calculation running fast behind her eyes. I turned back to my notes. I kept my remarks short because everything important had already been done in lawyers' offices and county filing systems, not in speeches. I talked about Marcus briefly and honestly because his name deserved to be in the room. I talked about Dolores at length because she was sitting in the front row and had waited long enough to be thanked out loud. I announced the foundation we were funding in Marcus's name, a skilled trade scholarship for young people in Davidson County, because the work he did with his hands had built everything I stood on. Then I said one more thing. 11 years ago, 2 people didn't come when I needed them to. And 2 people did. Everything you see today was built in the direction of the ones who showed up. I stepped back from the podium. My mother stood up. Her voice, when it came, was the one I remembered from childhood. Sharp, certain, already constructing the version of events she needed to be true. "Claire, we are your family. You don't get to rewrite history in front of all these people." The room went very still. I looked at her for a moment. Then I looked at the empty chair. "I saved you a seat," I said. "You just showed up for the wrong thing again." Sandra put her hand on my arm, gently, the way people do when everything is already handled and they want you to know it. The room was quiet. My mother opened her mouth and closed it. My father looked at the floor. Dolores reached over and took Lily's hand. The chair sat empty for the rest of the event. My family left before the formal signing. I didn't watch them go. I was busy signing my name on the line Sandra indicated, in the same blue ink I'd used on every document that had brought me to that room. Afterward, when the press had filed out and the chairs were being folded and Lily was eating a biscuit from the catering table like it was an ordinary morning, Dolores came and stood beside me. "You okay?" she said. I thought about it honestly, the way she taught me to. "Yeah," I said. "I think I finally am." She nodded once, the way she always did when something was settled, and went to help Lily with her napkin. I picked up the index card from the empty chair and put it in my pocket, next to where I always kept the recipe. Some things you carry with you. Some things you leave behind. The trick is knowing which is which. If someone showed up for you when your own blood didn't, go tell them. Not someday. Today. And if this story said something you needed to hear, share it with someone who needs it more.